Hello, good morning, everybody. It's my birthday here again. Day 61 of compassionate response to COVID-19. Originally when I set out doing these sessions, it was just after Boris Johnson in the UK had announced that we're going to have restrictions on movement and gatherings and things. And I had part of the impetus was to just be able to help people, because I thought, it's going to be difficult for people who are not used to kind of having the move, but in a way not used to things like being on their own or meditating, anything like that. I thought I'd be able to help them. The way it's worked out is that we've ended up with like some quite long videos, and sometimes quite kind of deep Buddhist philosophy and all that sort of thing. So in a way, I've kind of veered away a bit from the original aim. But I think I think this is meeting another aim in a way, which is to get out into the world some of the ideas that I've been dwelling on over the years, but also to share the experience of Buddhism, and share the experience of people, actually, because I think I've said this repeatedly that the thing that really convinces us of anything is if it's something like a spiritual or religious even thing, the thing that's convincing is the person, the people that are there, and the qualities that they have, because it's all about that, really. It's all about who we are. It's like show, not tell. So I'm in a way I'm thinking, well, actually, we may be in a different world actually from before after this, and so it'd be good for us to remember some of what is good or has been good about about the world we've had and the freedoms that we've had. And so this week I've been sharing a lot of my kind of friendships with people in the order, and particularly people in Buddhafield. So we had Padmapani and Dharma Mati last couple of days, and then Sthiraprabha was we had Sthiraprabha for 2 days, and Dam Bandhu and Sumana. And then this morning, last night I thought, I kind of in a way I sympathise with journalists, who have to have a story for the next day. Like there's got to be something on the front page, and like last night I was trying to get other order members to turn up and do the session this morning, but I couldn't get anybody, and I thought, oh no, I failed. The front page is empty. I mean, one of the things that I've really wanted to do is to record the order and record my friends in the order for posterity in a way. So I did start recording. Like I was really glad that I did, actually, because one of my friends, Ratnajyoti, who was around in Buddhafield for, I don't know, 20 years or something, from the early days, from the late 90s when I first started going along. He died a few years ago, and but I'm really glad that I did some cinema verite, and I recorded him and Dhiramati and Dharmamati all kind of just sitting in the evening sunshine in a field, at Buddhafield, and just kind of hanging out and just chewing the fat and having a laugh and stuff, So I'm going to be remembering Ratnajyoti today, and I would have really liked to have morning Simona. I would have really, and Dharma Bandhu, I would have really liked to have got his friends to on board, to on Zoom to talk about him. And but I think what I'll do is I'll do that later on. I'll record some Zoom sessions with. I'll try and get Dhiramati, Padmapani, and other Dharma Bandhu to talk about him. And Padma's here, and actually, if you want to join in on Zoom, you can join in on Zoom, the normal one that I send. So if you want to join Padmapani, Dharma Bandhu, Sumana, join in. Yeah. So I thought that I'll do that, and share some little clips, videos of Ratnajyoti, and hopefully it works. I wasn't expecting them to be there. Anyway, so to start off with, we're going to do a little bit of body work and a bit of meditation, and then see where we go from there after that. Okay. So what should we do today? Just begin by shaking your arms out, shaking the stress off the ends of your hands. Just make it up, really. So throw the stress off the end of your arms. Rub your hands together. Give your hands a bit of a squeeze. And we're just going to do a kind of a lazy swinging backwards and forwards. Just get into some sort of rhythm. So just what we're remembering is that to meditate effectively, we need to have some energy in our bodies. And maybe put your thoughts and mind, concerns just to one side. Maybe imagine putting them in a jar on the other side of the room in your imagination. And then put your other foot forward, doing the same thing. Just lazily and then just rotating your hips. So we're going to the four corners, to the back, to one side, to the front, to the side. Just trying to keep mind and body in the same place. So your mind's not ahead of your body, and your body's not ahead of your mind either. And then put your arm over the top, and so just little movements, just backwards and forwards. So you're stretching up on this side and you're pushing down on the other side. Just very gently stretching backwards and forwards. And then on the other side. And then just shake everything out. Oops. Give your face a little bit of a wash, the hands, gently brushing across your face. And then take a seat for meditation. So I think one of the things that Ratnajyoti kind of reminds me most of is grounding. So he was so good at being grounded in his experience. So we're going to do a grounding meditation. So the idea behind this is to just make conscious what our situation is. So mindfulness is often about just bringing things into awareness. So we're just going to bring into awareness what's actually the case right now. So the first thing that's the case is that we're a human being, and we're alive. And our life takes place in time and space. So first of all, being aware of the dimension of time. That your life exists in time. So being aware of all the moments of experience that you've had in the past. So sometimes in meditation we just have to give things time. We're trying to do something, so just being patient. Just waiting for yourself to arrive into the present moment. No, sorry, into the past, awareness of the past. The fact that you had a past. And also being aware that it's the case that you'll have a future, hopefully. So being aware of all the moments that are going to be in the future. And then being aware that it's also the case that you exist in a particular moment in time, which is the present moment. So waking up to the fact that you exist in this particular moment in time, the present moment, that this is where your life is happening. Again, just giving yourself enough time, just being patient, just wait for yourself to arrive in the present moment. So as well as existing in time, what else can we say is the case? So it's also the case that we exist in space. So we're sitting on a huge great ball of matter called the Earth. And above our head is the atmosphere, which is about 10 miles thick. And then that thins out. Beyond that we have vast empty space. Absolutely huge distances out there. Well, every now and then there might be a star or a galaxy, but not very often. the earth are land masses and ice caps, oceans, deserts, mountain ranges, farmland, jungle. And you're in the particular place, location on the earth that you're in right now. So just waiting for it to dawn on you where you are on the earth. Give yourself some time to just wake up to where you are. So what else can we say is the case, as well as existing time and space? Well, it's the case that we have a physical body that exists in the physical world. And that body has a particular structure to it. We've got bones to support the body's weight and muscles to move the body about, organs to keep it alive. So just tuning into the reality of your own body. seeing where the bones are, where the muscles are, where the organs are. And then just aligning ourselves with the reality of our body. So just letting the bones of the body, the skeleton, take the weight of the body. And it's quite good if we're not leaning over on either forwards or backwards or side to side. Because if we are, we'll be needing to put tension on one side of the body, and we're looking to not do that. So just balancing the spine so that it just rises up from your seat as vertically as possible. And having your mind and emotions uninvolved with your body, so it's not like they're directing anything. It's more like the body's just naturally sitting there, reflecting that the body knows how to sit down. It doesn't need any help from your mind to do that. So just let your body just sit there, and all you have to pay attention to is the angle that your spine is making with the seat. And then if the bones of the body are taking the weight of the body, then the muscles can feel confident that they can soften and relax. And that relaxation is a physical thing. It's just like unfurling a fist. And if you start to feel distracted, just keep coming back to the reality of your situation, aware of time, aware of space, aware of your body, aware of the structure of your body. Just let your body sit there, balancing your spine and unfurling any tension in your muscles. Just keep coming back to this systematically to what's the case, working with what's the case. Softening at the crown of the head, softening in the face, in the hands and the feet. Letting go in the shoulders, down the arms. as the mind and the emotions disengage with having to feel this need to support the body, they can now feel free to feel supported by the body. So as your body is still and increasingly letting go of tension and stable, just allowing your mind and your emotions to feel that stability, to feel that sense of reassurance that there's something there underneath them, supporting them. Something steady and reliable. So whenever you get lost, just keep coming back to whatever is the case. Time, space, a body, having a body, structure of your body, relaxing. Sense of reassurance. So in your own time, just bringing that meditation to a close. So this is the first time I've done a session on my own for a while now. I've done eight sessions with other order members. It's a bit weird, but I know that Padmapani and Dhamabandhu and Sumana are all in. Well, they appeared on the thing. Anyway, so I'm just going to get going with talking about Ratnajyoti. So yeah, Ratnajyoti was a friend of mine. Who he's been involved in Buddha field from the late 90s onwards, and he well, actually he got ordained in something like the mid 70s, and he was one of the small kind of group of people who came up to Manchester actually to set up the centre, try and set up a centre in Manchester, and he actually lived, I think, not too far from where I live now, in the late 70s. So, I left here, Manchester, in 77, so we just missed each other. But he went on this kind of really, he was, he got ordained and he was involved and everything, and then he went on this. Something in his psyche went a bit like, oh, I need to do something else, and he went up and he started living in a kind of commune or some sort of commune up in Scotland, and he had nothing much to do with the order movement for years, and then he came back. I'm not quite sure how what it might have been Buddha feel actually that was the thing that attracted him back, So he came back and he was kind of like reintroduced to the order, and which he hadn't had any contact with, and people were talking about, oh, he needs to get reordained or something, but Sangharakshita says, well, he doesn't need to get reordained; he's already ordained. Anyway, I remember being at Padmaloka where he was kind of like welcome back, really. But then over the years, it's been very helpful to me, and particularly, so if there's anybody I know or knew who relies on emotions more than anything else, it was him, and intuition. So he used to kind of hate anything that was to do with rationality, and he put a lot of emphasis on dream. So he used to do dream workshops at Buddhafield, and also he did some at Bristol. But he wouldn't do things very often, but he was just there as a kind of resource. And I remember sometimes when I'd been kind of struggling with my mental states and just difficult emotions, he would be the person. He'd be the person who'd be kind of like really helpful. And I remember being on. He lived down in Devon, and. A lot of the time, Devon or Bristol, and I remember being on Dartmoor with him, and he was leading me in some sort of intuitive thing, like a psychological bodywork kind of thing, and what he was getting me to do was to however I was feeling, could I translate that into something else, like a physical action, or so the whole thing about dreaming? It's like he was sort of saying, "Oh, there's a physical side to things. There's an imaginative, there's an image side of things. There's a emotional side of things. Can you shift from one to the other? What does it mean to shift from one to the other?" And I just found myself. There were all these sheep around on Dartmoor, and there was one, and I just had this image of myself, like almost like as if I had a hoof or something, and I was like clawing the grass with this hoof, and it was like it was moving everything from out of the oppressive feeling that I had into something outside of myself, which was this image of me as a sheep, kind of clue. It's somehow helpful. It was kind of weird, Yeah. So Dharma Bandhu's just sort of said, "Can I send him the Zoom link again so people can join in?" So I'm going to do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show some little videos of Ratnajyoti and others at Buddhafield. Okay, so just to give you a sense of him. All right.
There's nothing wrong with work. No, you should try it once. I didn't do it once. No, it's not all it's cracked up to be. How long ago was that? 40 years ago?
No, I've done it since then. Yeah.
What was the last time? You've done some today, haven't you?
Okay, so great. Wow, this is great to have you both here. Do you want to take it in turn? So, do you want to? I mean, Dan Bandy, you were kind of involved with Ratnajyoti first, weren't you? Out of the two of you, was it?
Well, Padma Pani was the longer term friend, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then when Maharatnajyoti approached Buddhafield, as it were, yes, I was around when he approached and asked to get involved, and he did, and he came in and he just joined in, he just threw it, and there's a little bit of history to that, anyway.
Yeah, go on. Just riff, just talk about it too.
Yeah. He went to see Banti, and he had actually officially resigned. Mm-hmm. Yes. So he wasn't actually any longer in the order. Now, he was very, very good friends with Banti. Banti looked upon him very favourably, and take that what you want by that. But the interesting thing was Banti said he couldn't remember resigning him. So he said, "Well, what shall I do?" And Banti said, "Well, you ought to go down and see Buddhafield." And I saw Ratnajyoti driving in, and he saw me, and we had this discussion. He told me what happened and everything, and his history, how he went to Manchester. He went to Manchester with Sagramati eventually, and also then Ratnaguna was in that community. But yeah, I don't want to say too much, but that's a kind of a bit of a prelude to him coming into the field. So he was actually basically sent by Banti to say, "Well, why don't you join Buddhafield?"
Yeah.
Yeah. So he there's definitely the right choice.
Yeah.
Banti was on the ball there. Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you remember, DB, about working with him in the late 90s and that? Because I remember you being at Shepton Mallet, in the field there, and doing the sweat lodges and all that.
Yeah. Well, as Padma said,
that was his entry then, and into Butterfield, or re-engagement with Tree Ratner and Butterfield. And I'm just trying to remember, but we were doing retreats and festival and different things, and he just engaged. And we're talking over a number of years now, aren't we? After his engagement, and yes, I joined the first community, the mixed community that he was in as well. So,
can we say where that was?
Yeah, that was down in Hittersley, wasn't it? Down in Devon.
Yeah.
First mixed community, and I was there for about 6 months, and I went to Gukiloka for 3 years, and he carried on with Butterfield. So, yes, and what can I say? I mean, I was in a caravan. He moved into my caravan when I left. But, Ratnajyoti was just a one-off, wasn't he? He was a character, and he was just coming from, as you say, the angle from the emotions, and he was also a warrior, wasn't he? He was a Tai Chi practitioner, a sword foot. Yeah, he was a magician. He was a magician kind of guy.
Yeah. So it was a Moga City, wasn't it, that he was connected with,
Yeah, Moga City.
Moga City, yeah.
I think it's important to bring in here the background, the medical background of Ratnajyoti, which we haven't done, which will explain quite a bit of his behaviour.
Yeah.
To a certain extent. And for those of you who don't know, Ratnajyoti developed epilepsy. He was an epileptic. And in a way, that kind of, to a certain degree, as time went on, moulded more of the processes that were happening with him. And to be honest, it was also very challenging for people in Butterfield, including myself and Dhiramati. And certainly it was challenging, and we can talk about that a bit later on. But his dis-ease, now listen to the way I said that, dis-ease rather than disease, was very interesting, because it was very, very challenging. You remember yesterday I talked about horizontal integration in terms of one's interaction with people. With Ratnajyoti, there was almost no horizontal communication at all, maybe because of his dis-ease, which actually made you feel slightly uncomfortable sometimes being with Ratnajyoti, because you didn't quite know what was going to happen at any particular time when you met him, other than also having an epileptic fit occasionally. Yeah, you're not quite sure what would happen, which in a way, in my experience, put him on the edge. But at the same time, he was a very attractive figure in some of the ways that you're saying. Anyway, I just wanted to put that in there.
Yeah. I mean, I know that he didn't want to see it as you say. He didn't want to see his epilepsy as a disease, did he?
No.
He wanted to. Yeah, and he kind of. He sort of like slightly refused treatment around it, and
exactly, and that was an issue. He also got very into Dr. Mendel.
That was the guy, yeah. Harvey Mendel.
Extraordinary. I've read some of his books. I mean, extraordinary doctor. Developing all sorts of interesting theories about it, working with epilepsy in a way that was really cutting edge. And I know Ratnajyoti, I think, got enamored by him, and basically, unfortunately, I think there was a dangerous element there which made him feel, in a way, arrogance the wrong word, but he really believed that the spiritual life as the warrior, working with epilepsy, he did it in such a way which would refuse to use the medical drugs as much as possible.
Yeah.
But at the same time, epilepsy is in the medical catalogue a disease.
Yeah.
And it did progress.
Yeah.
And Ratnajyoti's epileptic fits got stronger. And eventually he died. But we can talk about that later on. But that's background.
Yeah. So I remember like him in the second site that Buddhafi was on, where we had the meditation space up in the trees and stuff, and then at a certain point, him and it was like
Dhiramati.
Him and Dhiramati, yeah. So everybody sort of Buddhafi everybody would have a role or something, and he kind of refused that, So him and Dhiramati ended up being like the yogis up on the hill, who didn't have a role,
Well,
Their role was to not have a role.
They were actually called the Mad Yogis. I can tell you a little bit about that because Ratnajyoti told me about it. Basically, he didn't really have that much of a role other than in the old site, like I say, along the Blackdown Hills. But the original site was a beautiful site, which I think nowadays is used for the eco Buddhafield event. But those days, I think Akashati, she was like partly running the show, and she wanted, I think it was very interesting what she did. She wanted people to come in that kind of were slightly outside the box. And of course, Ratnajyoti fitted that like a, velvet glove. And Dhiramati came on board, and they got these tickets to the festival, like I got my ticket as, looking after the shrine, which I was ongoing. And they were camped up by the shrine just further along from me. And we all joined in a lot. It was extraordinary because I got quite caught up. It was quite infectious because they were quite spontaneous. I even bought a giant catapult, and we joined in. And one we had this giant catapult, which was so enormous. It was like you needed two people on both sides of the rubber holding it down, and the third person will pull it back something like maybe about 6 yards. And of course, the further you pulled it back, the more tension there was on the rubber band, and it had a cup at the back, which we then fired water balloons. And you see somebody crossing the field, and person will pray, taking in the wind direction, the velocity, and see if we can actually. And you see these balloons exploding near people, a long way away, and they're absolutely just puzzled, like splat. Imagine the field, and occasionally, I think one, which really unfortunate, we never used it after that. We actually hit someone. It was a big. I mean, that was really unfortunate. But the whole thing was just to create that you're never quite sure what was going to happen. But of course, with Ratnajyoti, you didn't even need the catapult really.
Yeah. I mean, things are coming back to mind here now. So I'm remembering like the early days of Butterfield. He was really drumming a lot, wasn't he? He was like, you'd have all these. He
was a very good drummer.
You'd have these drumming sort of circles all the time, springing up everywhere, and he'd be really involved, wouldn't he? Yeah, and all that.
Well, it was terrible. I mean, he wanted to join. He wanted to join the band, the Puja band, and at first, Dhiramati, who was also, doing the pujas with me, we welcomed him at first, but he used to get into what we called his black moods, and he would be asymmetrical in his drumming when we were doing a puja, we're doing a mantra, and then he'll come in with an offbeat, and we were keeping the thing going, and this offbeat would, it was strange, and we used to tell him off afterwards. But he could be incredibly annoying, when you're actually doing something which was symmetrical, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
He would come in with something asymmetrical,
yeah.
out the blue.
Yeah.
I mean, as musically, it's very interesting because he's into Captain Beefheart a lot. And if you listen to Beefheart, you can understand, you know, where he's coming from.
Yeah. Well, one of my memories.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, go on.
No, because so I had 3 years out. Although I came back from Gukyloka in Spain, and then I entered the Mad Yogis quite a bit when I was back, and then I went away again and came back, and you know, just trying to. Sorry, I'm just trying to bring myself in, but just trying to connect with that time. It was wild. It was wild. I mean, we got on well, and like you know, he was very helpful and came towards you and took you into this world of mad dreams, and they worked very much on the emotional, unconscious level, you know. But it was also threatening, you know, because you never knew whether you'd say something and it was gonna just trigger him into some, or it trigger you, you know. You'd have to you'd have to be really real, you know.
Yeah. Well, I remember that there was a puja in the big tent, and there was an older member there who was like, and there was a lot of chaos going on, and I think I can't remember what the theme of the puja, but it was something like Padmasambhava or I don't know, Vajradhakani. Something, I don't know. It's some figure that was kind of representing like approaching death, really. And this order member was kind of complaining about the chaos and all that. And Ratnajyoti he said to him, "Do you know what you're doing here? Do you know what this is?" You know. So it was like he was sort of saying, "This is chaos. You know, life is chaos, and this is what we're trying to approach. You know, this is about death. You know, it's like you don't, you know." And you know, it's like he really kind of spelt it out, you know.
Yeah. Well, I remember something really well, because there's a wonderful experience, this puja we had, where Ratnajyoti actually brought the whole thing alive. It was on Teddy's Field, but it was in not Teddy's Field. Further down there was this other field, which overlooked Glastonbury Tor, and it was a magical field. Anyway, we're doing this puja there. Actually, it might have been Teddy's Field. Anyway, we were doing a Padmasambhava cremation ground puja with Dhiramati and myself and various other people. And we had we did it in the evening to have dramatic effect. So we had this people sat inside a circle. We had these stakes around in a circle, which were dipped in swaddling and not petrol but paraffin, and they're all alight. And on the top, or next to them, there were stakes with skulls. So it was very dramatic, like a cremation ground, yeah. And Ratnajyoti was on the other side of that dark barrier, you know, because when you have light, everything behind it in the twilight or going dark is darker. See what I mean? So you couldn't really see who was on the outside. And there was we were in the middle of the puja and we're approaching the cremation ground, and there was these terrible screams coming from outside. And it was Ratnajyoti, but people didn't know who it was. And he'll come rushing, all painted in some horrible mask or something, drag somebody out and pretend to sound like club him or kill them or something. And people got really scared. And of course, the idea behind it was to, you know, fiscally give the experience of death, you know. And it worked, but it was very scary. Anyway, I can't remember the details, but I do remember Ratnajyoti relishing that aspect of emotionally going in there. Looks like we lost Dharma Bandit.
Yeah.
Come back.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's interesting because as Dharma Bandit says, you didn't quite know where you were. And this is why I think people were slightly scared of Ratnajyoti.
yeah. I mean, I remember the he was in the community, at Hittersley and all that, and I saw it was really, I saw that it was really important that he was a part of things, that it wasn't just the the organised side of Butterfield, like the putting it all on, they needed to, they needed to have this sort of other element which he represented, the non-utilitarian element, the spirit and the soul or something, and I think when he left there, I think it something died about the whole thing, because that spirit wasn't, the anarchic element wasn't there anymore, Yeah.
Because I remember that one of the key guys at that Hitler's thing was Sajajit. There was Sajajit and Mamukshu, more or less, were the linchpin of that community. Do you think that was right, Don Bandit? Mamukshu and Sajajit, they were the kind of key guys there, weren't they?
Well, there have been, haven't there?
Yes.
The organisation side of things.
Yeah. But I know that Satyajit and Ratnajyoti fell out quite a bit. But at the same time, there was later on a reconciliation between Satyajit and high pitched noise and Ratnajyoti.
Yeah.
And it came that there was a lot of respect for each other.
Well, I think yeah.
Yeah, but while he was there were a lot of incidences, uncomfortable incidences.
Yeah.
Because Ratnajyoti was dealing with quite a lot of stuff, with his epilepsy, I think.
Yeah. So
that's right. Yeah.
And something I also got to know about epilepsy and Ratnajyoti. Have you got something on? There's something whistling. Oh, it might be. It's gone off again. Ratnajyoti was very, very, around an epileptic fit, or when one was going to happen, like at Butterfield or something, he had one or two there. He could hear noises that other people couldn't hear. For instance, he would come up and he said, "Oh, get those blades out of my head." And I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "A helicopter." And I said, "What?" He said, "These helicopter blades, they're terrible. They're really doing me in." And this is just prior to an epileptic fit. And there were other people there with me who said, "Well, we can't hear any helicopter." Anyway, it kind of went into a fit. And then a helicopter appeared on the horizon about 3 or 4 minutes, into view, later on. So he was very, very sensitive, or could pick up vibrations or sounds, which other people couldn't even hear until much later. I thought that was very interesting. I haven't gone into epilepsy to know if this is a common thing, but it was interesting that he had these seemed like abilities which were later.
Yeah. Because there's often seen to be a bit of a link between epilepsy and like some sort of creativity, isn't there? Like.
And also warriorship, because Alexander the Great, he was epileptic.
Yeah. I remember like Ratnajyoti doing his sword form in the field, in the early morning.
Yeah, very impressive.
Yeah. It's like Tai Chi but using a sword, and
Yeah, stayed away from him. Just not quite sure what was going to happen.
Yeah.
But it was always quite traumatic, having to deal with when you came across his tent, and they'd been in a fit, and we got to know, because he told us when he got well, and also I think Annie helped us. You remember Annie Munro, who was like often trained in medical stuff, as a nurse or something, first aid. That's it. She was showing how to deal with epileptics or to deal with people when they've had a fit. I found that incredibly helpful with my Ratnajyoti. Because the dangerous thing was, if he was having a fit and he was like, sometimes you'd be foaming, is to put him on the side into a rescue position, like a fetus. And that stopped that dangerous thing of like even, dying of your own vomit or in your own, in your own stew, so to speak. But we got used to that. But there was always this edge with Ratnajyoti, about the epilepsy and having an epileptic fit in a major thing, or him doing something totally irrational when you were actually organising and watching a ritual. Because ritual, when people see a ritual, when it's working smoothly, it works really well as a collective mandala. But if you've got a kind of, a maverick in that, you're not. When you got Maharatnajyoti in, when you're in charge of the ritual, it gives an edge of slight anxiety or something because you're running it. You've got a lot of things to remember. The sequence of things you're doing a puja, and then somehow a drumming might start up. Nothing to do with your agenda. And occasionally, I remember. Well, there was one occasion, it wasn't the Dharma Bandi, when we were in the middle of a puja, Ratnajyoti and you had a row. It was quite strong, and things kind of stopped, and everybody was like focused in on this row. And I can't remember what it was about, but we had to kind of disperse it quite quickly. But it was very awkward, I think for a lot of people, Maharatnajyoti was seen as a kind of almost a troublemaker, and I think to some degree, I think that was valid.
Something's coming out here, Pam.
Well, I could tell you that that famous thing, because I've said it a few times, and maybe it might be worth it later on when it caused me a lot of trouble, a lot of jit. It was really scary. I don't know if you want to go in. It will take me about 10 minutes to explain, but it is probably the most scary thing, one of the most scary things that ever happened in my life with Ratnajyoti when I was in Nepal. Do you remember it, Dharma Bandi? Have I told you? I don't know if people want to hear it.
You muted, DB. You muted.
You're muted.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yes, sir.
Sorry about that. Yeah. Because it's breaking up. Is the screen breaking up?
No. I just. No, it's fine.
No.
It's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, it happened to me yesterday. Actually, apparently, when I looked at my thing. Yeah, it's a bit awkward.
Yeah.
I'm being luckier today.
Do you want to just try and say it briefly as possible, like rather?
Yeah. Well, I wanted to take. I wish, in some respects, I hadn't. I wanted to take Ratnajyoti to Nepal, where I used to go and pick up stuff for Buddhafield. This is way back about 2004, I think, maybe 2005. I'm not sure. It's my first time, or the second time I've been in Nepal. I went, when I went with Bhante and Yuvraj to India, I went to Nepal. Anyway, he wanted to go with me trekking, and we decided to pick up a guide and fill in the forms and everything, get this guide, and we were heading out, and we went to Annapurna Base Camp. Now, Annapurna Base Camp is like an interior of the mountains around Annapurna. The base camp is about 12,400 feet. I'll just go in feet, makes it easy. And Ratnajyoti and I proceeded quite well. It all went quite well until we got to the base camp. On the day we were going to go up to Annapurna Base Camp, which was the highest place we could go to without actually climbing, getting into crampons and ropes and going up to the mountains themselves, which is around about 14,500 feet, pretty high up. We were based around Machipachari, the mountain of Machipachari. Now, that mountain, called the Fishtail Mountain sometimes, is sacred to Lord Shiva. And that, I don't think, in retrospect, that was a coincidence. That was actually a coincidence. I don't think it was just a coincidence what happened. So we're getting a little bit esoteric here, but on the ground, Ratnajyoti, we were just setting up, and he said, I don't feel very well. I might be getting a fit. And that's about the most coherent thing he said that day. And I said, well, look, we won't go up. We'll stay here, because apparently we found out later that actually altitude affected possibly an epileptic fit. He hadn't told me this. And then I decided, well, look, come sit on the bed here. And I put all cushions from the other beds and things in this place, because there weren't many people there, on the floor around, in case he had a fit when I wasn't there. He would just fall onto something soft, because it was a hard slate floor. Anyway, what happened was he did have a fit, but not. He refused to go and sit on the thing, and he collapsed and hit his skull and had a big gash on his forehead. And it was quite a bad fit. And then he had another fit, almost within the fit. And I thought, my God, what am I going to do here? And then I remembered there was possibly a nurse down, because we were talking with this woman the night before. There was a nurse further down the mountain. So I ran down the mountain. There was snow and sleet and everything. We're high up. We're above the avalanche terrain. We had to pass through the avalanche terrain. And I got down to this nurse, and she came up and she said, we've got to get this guy down. I said, well, why? She said, well, because he's an epileptic, and this altitude, with the lack of oxygen and the needing to breathe properly, because we've got to get him down to a low level. That was easier said than done, because apparently this was around about 2:00 in the afternoon. And we, like I said, we'd passed this dangerous avalanche area further down. Now, just before Ratnajyoti had this fit, he said, there's a thunderstorm coming. And I said, can't, there's nothing. And sure enough, by the time he had this fit, in his second fit, you could hear this thunderstorm coming up from below, up the mountains towards us. So what happened was, we got this, we had to reconnoitre these people, Nepalese, looking at these porters and things, working at the hotel, and they wouldn't do it. And so we had to pay them. They wanted 6 months' wages to do that. And then we had to get him down. He was going to die. I don't think they understood the situation. So I had what money I gave, and she gave some money as well. And some people around gave some money. We gave it to the porters. And they ripped up some bed sheets, made 2 splits, and put Ratnajyoti on this thing. And I remember I had a little thermal thing, it cost me about £2.50, those gold things they use for NASA. They reflect the light,
blanket.
the heat.
Yeah.
It's a thermal blanket, that's the right, thank you. And I put that round him, and we started heading down the mountain. And this thunderstorm was coming up, and there were golf ball sized bits of ice coming down, and thunder was banging and hitting the mountains. And of course, it was during this avalanche time, and we had to cross this thin bit of ice with a complete slope going down to the river. And it was very dangerous carrying him along this bit. And we got to this rock in the middle, and an avalanche came down the other side where we just been, which would have swept us away to our death. So then we realized this is really dangerous. And we got down to an area where there was a bridge, and the bridge didn't have any side sections. There were loose bits of wood to the other side. And we were crossing this bridge, and we couldn't carry Ratnajyoti across the bridge. It was too dangerous. So we had to push him across, and the Nepali guy got the other side, and we literally pulled and heaved him across. Then we crawled across ourselves with a drop to a chasm hundreds of feet below in this massive thunderstorm. It was really scary. I mean, really scary. You're right on the edge. Anyway, we got him safely down. And I thought that was the end of it. Ratnajyoti was, they said, well, why don't you just lead me up the mountain? I felt like hitting him, when he's recovered. We took him down to a hotel. He was suffering from hypothermia. He was in safe hands, and me and my guy went on up to Annapurna, did the thing, came straight back down. And Ratnajyoti was in a foul mood about it that we left him, but we knew it was going to be safe. And then we all went back, and we didn't speak to each other for about 2 or 3 weeks in Kathmandu because Ratnajyoti was, in a sense, in denial of what really happened about the fact that we actually more or less saved his life.
Yeah.
And that was a very difficult time. But then it changed when we eventually got back to England. But we had this terrible incident. I had this terrible incident in Doha Airport on the way back.
Yeah.
So we came in. Our flight came in to Doha, which via Qatar Airlines, and we're in this international airport. It's quite modern. And we're waiting for our flight. We had to wait about 4 hours for a flight to Heathrow. And anyway, he and I think we crashed out. And when I woke up, I couldn't see Ratnajyoti. And when I woke up, there was a call on the intercom saying the flight to Heathrow was ready. Will passengers have their passports and move towards passport control? And I couldn't find Ratnajyoti, so I looked around, couldn't see him. And then I looked in the toilets, couldn't see him. I thought he might have had a fit. And then I was walking across the concourse, and I saw this. Well, first of all, I heard these sirens coming outside, and ambulance. And I saw Ratnajyoti in a chair with a drip, and this medic guy pushing him. So I ran up to him, and he said, "Look, this is Ratnajyoti. We've got to get on the flight." "No, this guy's not going anywhere. He's going to hospital." Now, I realised that, look, I was in a very dangerous situation because we only had a return flight, and Ratnajyoti, I don't think, had told his insurance that he had epilepsy. So his medical insurance was void, and he was also going to a hospital in Doha. Which he would then have to pay for and get a flight back. And if I went with him, I wouldn't have the money to get a flight back either, alternate. So I had to think quickly. So I blatantly lied and said, "Look, I'm a doctor. I'm looking after him." And this guy looked at me rather spiritually, and he said, "Well, look, the flight's going." I said, "Look, I'm a doctor. I need to take this guy. He needs medical. I'm looking after him on the plane." So he looked at me and he looked at the screen. And by then, all the people are gone. And then the police came. The police came and they took our passports from us. I thought, well, that's it. But they went to just photocopy it and then gave them back. And then the guy by then had made his mind up that, okay, I'll trust you. So they sent, by this time, this enormous aircraft. It was a big aircraft, a big Airbus, an enormous thing. It was on the runway, and it was actually ready for taxiing, and they stopped it. And they got this bus, takes you to the airplane, just Ratnajyoti and me on it. And in front, there was this lorry with a ramp that took you up to the plane, and the plane stopped. They got this ramp, opened up the door, and you got Ratnajyoti. He was like completely out of it, like, and me, and they put him in a seat, and then the plane was taking off as they're literally strapping him in. And then the nurse came, said, "Ratnajyoti, I need to sleep." And then he woke up, and then sorry, not the nurse, what do they call them? The cabin crew.
Yeah.
And she said, "Oh, would you like something to eat?" He said, "God, yeah, I'm starving. Quick, give me that." So he got this meal, but he still had tremors from his epileptic fit. And I remember these poor old Americans ahead. The tray he had went up. All this food flew up over the head and went onto this woman and this guy in front. Well, the plane was taking off. It was like, when the plane was up in the air, my God, it was embarrassing. And then she passed him. He had also had this coffee, so he did those and he went, "Oh," and the coffee flew out and hit this person flying. All this coffee went. I thought, "Oh my God, I'm never going to fly with Ratnajyoti again." I mean, it was incredibly challenging for me, incredibly challenging time.
Yeah.
Anyway, I never flew Ratnajyoti again. I never would when he was still alive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, True story, by the way.
So it might be a bit cathartic to have said that in public. Get it
Yeah,
out.
I was going to say. I mean, you take your life into your own hands with
Yeah.
Ratnajyoti.
Yeah. So after this incident, did you kind of like, was the residue of like
Yeah.
you know, for
Yeah,
quite
it was
a number
very,
of years?
very
you know?
awkward.
Yeah.
When he got back to London, he stayed in my London flat. And what happened was, after a good night's sleep, he realised what had happened and what, in a way, we'd done for him. You know, not just me, but this other woman and all these people, and also the money we spent on him to get him down the mountain. You know.
Yeah.
Because when he was in Kathmandu, he refused to pay a penny. He said, "Well, just leave me there to die." I felt like, you know, bashing him, you know. But he did pay me back. And that day in London when he recovered, he kind of broke down. He was very repentant, and he realised what had really happened.
Yeah.
You know? He came basically to his senses about it, you know.
Yeah.
He actually became rational.
Yeah.
About it. It was extraordinary, but yeah, I mean, it was a very interesting episode in my life, but it was also incredibly rewarding in a way, because this experience around Shiva's mountain, the whole thing with Shiva and me and Avalokiteshvara, it's all very interconnected because of the Nagas, you know, because Shiva's very much connected with the Nagas. Both he and Avalokiteshvara, Shiva and Avalokiteshvara, they share a similarity in the tantras, because both of them take on the poison of the world. In this case of Avalokiteshvara, and with Shiva, he goes into
the blue-throated one or something.
Yeah, they're both blue-throated ones. And anyway, Ratnajyoti, Professor Ratnajyoti, he can tell you a bit more about it, because we talked a bit about this in a seminar in Montana in America in 1996. And there's a lot of stuff about this. It's very interesting, but there is a correspondence between Avalokiteshvara and Shiva, and it is interesting that the Nagas' favourite deity is Padmapani. It's interesting, isn't it? So that was really weird. I always thought that this thunderstorm coming up and these hailstones coming down, we were taking Ratnajyoti down, the whole thing came together in a dramatic experience, and it really gave me an edge into death, you know, right on the edge. I could have easily been a guy fighting in Vietnam, you know, with a Viet Cong with napalm flying around and bullets, and it was right on the edge there. And it gave me some insight into what these guys coming back from a war zone must have been like, you know, like coming back to America. Yeah. It was like going with Ratnajyoti up the mountain was like coming back from a war zone, you know.
Yeah. So do you think it kind of changed you afterwards, when you settled down, you know?
Yeah. Well, you probably heard from some of my other experiences. I've had quite a few unusual experiences, but that was one of the most unusual ones, you know. I think there were very positive forces for us there. I mean, it was touch and go, really was.
Yeah,
touch
sounds
and
like
go.
it. Yeah.
I mean, that avalanche just missed us by 10 seconds. And the strip between where the avalanche ended and where it began, this strip of ice coming down from the mountain, probably triggered by thunder, you know, boom. And that time of the day when the sun's hot and it's melting the ice and snow, you get these shells of ice coming down from the mountain. People can't travel during that period over there, but we did to save his life, you know. But man, really cutting edge. Really on the edge. You felt like you were on a razor blade, you know. It could have gone either way. And I looked up at the sky, which was a kind of pinky grey colour with this thunderstorm coming out. I thought, I never felt so alive.
Yeah.
I never felt, and I'm sure that's the same when you're with a machine gun in Viet Cong, you know, under, you know, fighting or for your life or anywhere. Risky, you know. Well, near death, where you're getting this, aren't you? Even with COVID-19, people coming out from COVID-19, and they feel reborn almost.
Yeah, yeah.
You're on the edge.
Yeah.
It's an extraordinary experience.
Yeah.
Extraordinary.
Yeah.
I think it has helped me.
Yeah.
Has helped me
Yeah.
deal with that edge. Yeah.
So what do you think is like Ratnajyoti's legacy really to the order movement? Is that a reasonable question?
Well, I tend to judge these things by what actually happened at the end. Ratnajyoti, towards the end of his life, well, I ought to explain. Ratnajyoti had about 2 or 3 years before Loka Bandhu had a lovely cottage called Lambton Cottage in Glastonbury, and I used to go there and stay there on the way coming back from Buddhafield, and sometimes I'll leave some Buddhafield kit there in his garage there. And it's a really beautiful place, and the people in there were lovely. And he used to invite me to stay for a day or two, and I loved it because I quite enjoyed Glastonbury. I loved the bookshop and the various things there. In the tour, the Chalice Well where David Priya played some ashes. So it's got a lot of fond memories for me. So I was there, and I thought, well, as I knew Ratnajyoti was in Bristol, I invited him down to the cottage. First of all, I asked the others, and they said fine. So he came down on the bus from Bristol, and he was going to go back that day, and I had to leave to go back to London. But he stayed on a bit, and then he went. He was going back to the bus, and he met Helen Child, who used to work in Glastonbury. She invited him back to the cottage he'd just come from, where we stayed. And it was there that night when I got back to London, and I got a message from Helen that he had this really terrible epileptic fit, where he bashed himself against the Arga and then onto the floor, and a sharp bit on the Arga. And he had such a fall that he actually, I'm not sure, broken his neck. Yes, I think he had broken his neck.
Didn't he? Yeah.
And it was serious enough to call in the air ambulance. So they're trying to find a place to, because it's quite hilly, Glastonbury. So they found a place, but Ratnajyoti, in this epileptic fit, he was told not to move, by the way, which was a wise move, because he could have been completely paralysed. He decided to do that, so they had to get he didn't want to do that, so they got an ambulance in, and it took him all the way, I think, to Salisbury, which is quite away from Glastonbury. It's about an hour and a half fast drive. And he was there for a long, long time. He was there for 6 to 7 months in hospital, doing traction and various other things. He had this. They drilled these bolts into his brain, into his head, not to his brain. So he looked like like Frankenstein, going down to a metal saddle here. So he couldn't move his neck to stabilize the vertebrae. Because if you put it out, it would break the cordial nerves and he'd be paralyzed. Yeah. And I went to see him, and it was a mark, really, that people were a bit scared of Ratnajyoti, because he said, nobody comes to see me. A few people did. Helen was exemplary, Helen Child. She went to see him and looked after him. And I went to see him, actually, admittedly, about 2 or 3 months later. We correspond. But, he was quite pleased to see me and me him. By then, he got quite used to hospital life. And then he got discharged and went into a hospital at Taunton, which is actually a better hospital for him, actually. So he was in 2 hospitals for about 6 or 7 months, and when I got back. But he always rubbed people up the wrong way in this chapter, apparently, and a lot of the chapter didn't want anything to do with him. But there was... what's the name of that chapter guy? I was so impressed with this guy. He used to come and see Ratnajyoti every Sunday.
Wasn't Janaka, was it?
Janaka, yeah. I was very, very impressed with the kind of fortitude and just the sheer ethical valuation. You see Ratnajyoti even if nobody else went, he went there, go and see him. And often Janika told me he wouldn't say anything, or they'd just say, or not do anything, just maybe, and then you'd go back. But anyway, Ratnajyoti got an allotment out of this, and eventually he could get with some help, people digging out the allotment.
I did a bit of that.
But and when he came out of hospital, he had to then take this medication, and interesting, the thing that he hated more, he had to eventually do at the end because the doctors refused to accept him as in the hospital or discharge him if he didn't take this medication while he was in hospital. So he's on this medication, and when he came out of hospital, he had this thing built in his home, this whole like a mini hospital thing in his shower room with pull-up straps, and it cost a lot of money for the health service to put this into his bathroom to have a shower and everything. And a nurse would come and shower him, things like that. And he wasn't very coherent. And then towards the very end of his life, although I didn't know this, and I think he knew he died, he really wanted me to come, and I would have come anyway. But he said, "Oh, Pampani, how would you like to go on a cruise ship?" And of course, I love water in the oceans. And I said, "Well, okay, yeah, if it's going with you." And he said, "Well, let's go." I said, "Well, what do you mean, let's go? You just had to come out of hospital." I said, "Yeah, I know, but I want to go." And I think he actually knew he was dying because of his behaviour. So let me explain. When on the way to go to see, I think fictionally to go and see, book these things. This travel place, this ship. He said, "Where do you want to go?" I said, "I don't know. I've never been to the Caribbean. Let's go there then." I said, "Well, okay. What? He said, "Well, I've saved all this money since I've been in hospital. I got some money, so I'm going to blow it on a cruise ship. And I want you to come. So I thought, you're going to have to look after me." I said, "Yeah, okay." But then as we got into the discussion with the agents at the thing, it became more and more clear that there were complications because we weren't sure that the cruise ship actually wanted somebody like Ratnajyoti in that situation to be on the cruise ship. And of course, they can refuse. So there was, while these negotiations are going on, we were to and fro from his house. So over a couple of days. And Ratnajyoti did really weird things, which I thought, well, why would he do that? And I thought, well, he must be really ill. For instance, he got out his plonker in the middle of the high street and pissed up against shop doors. And sometimes you just spray right out to the street. And I thought, wow, I mean, this is just another episode with Ratnajyoti. You're there, it's like in a police weren't there. Anyway, those kind of things were getting more and more extreme, and he was quite incoherent. And he didn't really want me to leave when I went back. And I look back now and regret it because I could have stayed a bit longer, and I didn't. And he was really a Grateful Dead guy, him and Captain Beefheart, but Grateful Dead later on in his life, he's playing it all the time. And he kept playing me singing Grateful Dead songs as I was leaving, very poignant ones as well. And so that was my last experience of Ratnajyoti, was him in his wheelchair at home, me going out the door. And then I got a call from his ex-girlfriend about 2 weeks later that he'd had this fit. I wanted to know how he died. So we had this fit, and he obviously did. It was such a severe fit that he couldn't get out of it, the fit himself. He basically strangled himself, or it's not strangled himself, suffocated himself by turning in on the bed, and he didn't get over. The fit was so strong he didn't pull himself over to the side. And that was the method. But because he had all this hospitalisation, I don't think he needed to have a autopsy, But yes, he did have to have an autopsy. There were issues over his death, and it went on for ages before their cremation came. And hardly anybody came to the cremation, although we had this cremation service at the Bristol Buddhist Centre, which was actually pretty interesting. A lot of people came. And there's about 52 people there. I was there. And Suman was there.
At the Bristol.
John Brandy yourself.
Yeah, that was really good though, wasn't it? Yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
Yeah, Diramati
Yeah,
Puja and
but
all that.
because there was this delay, in the cremation, I think people dropped off the radar. And anyway, I came and they sent me the wrong, and I got there a little bit late, and there were a few people around them. Immediate family I never met before.
But the memorial thing the memorial thing at Bristol Buddhist Centre felt like it.
Yeah,
it did it really for me. It did for me anyway. Yeah. And we all went and had egg and chips afterwards.
Yeah,
that was nice, wasn't it?
Anyway, you're back. I've talked quite a bit about Jyoti.
I've been here, mate. I just thought maybe I was just causing so I just closed down, so I didn't take any more time, any more bandwidth.
Oh, I see.
I've been here. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, what can I say about Ratnajyoti? I've got very from. I think the key thing about Ratnajyoti is that he was the only order member that constantly took me out of my comfort zone, and therefore he was challenging, but at the same time, it pushed your boundaries. You were constantly having to push your own boundaries, which is what a guru would do, really. An enlightened master. I don't think he was enlightened, but an enlightened master, with like a crazy guru, would act in that in a similar kind of way. Take you through instances of pushing you to the edge. I think I could probably speak to Diramati, who probably say the same thing. I mean, certainly with the pujas, how he interrupted things. And an extraordinary person, a one-off.
Yeah. David, have you got anything you want to say?
Yeah. Well, I think basically it was Padmapani and Ratnajyoti's their history, and they're both. I think Padmapani is very much functions. Both of you relate on the emotional, instinctual, unconscious level as well. So that's your friendships on that level, isn't it? On the archetypal, it's an archetypal in a way. I think level to some degree, and Diramati. I think that's the level we were all on these different levels communicating on.
That's right, because when I had my breakdown, it effectively lasted 10 years. Working with Hillman, the only guy I really communicated the kind of non-rational to was very long conversations with Ratnajyoti. He's the only one that could tune in to my disorder. That's an interesting point, isn't it? He was the only guy that could tune in. I mean, other than James Hillman himself and people like Robert Bly.
Well, like Ratnajyoti and I did a breakdown at Kukyaloka in 1990, so I was in that shamanic world as well. The archetypal world, and that's the level I think. Well, that's one of the levels where we come from, isn't it? Those guys.
Exactly, and that's also the world. Buddha feels the world, which also is slightly different from the center organizational style of Triratna.
Yeah.
So that's
carry on with the pujas.
Well, it's like it's an energy, isn't it? It's an emotional, instinctual, archetypal. To use that language. That's the level which we tune into to some degree, and in pujas, or we're trying to invoke, or we tune in with. Yeah, that's what we're aren't we? We're calling on those energies, and Ratnajyoti was there.
But he was there, but more extreme. He wanted our disorganized pujas to be more radical.
he just wanted to be totally unconscious. He's not unconscious, but he wanted to just be totally spontaneous, didn't he? Totally, yeah, in that energy.
Yeah,
and it was a bit too didn't really want it to go that chaotic or wild, because there had to be some semblance. I don't know. Did we go ready with him? Sometimes we did, didn't we? We went.
Yeah, you did. I think my Ratnajyoti did teach me to take chances, like to jump in. Like, do you remember that contest I won where we ended up licking somebody's? Where I won the yoga saunas for life contest. Pamela Vajra was there that year. Various people came from Pamaloka, and there was this contest. It was meant to be put as a quiz. Do you remember? And I thought I was just entering a Buddhist quiz, and it ended up a test where all sorts of weird things happened in order to earn the title of getting free saunas for life and the next. Do you remember it? This was the old field where we have the eco retreat, green gathering.
Yes.
Yeah. That was also the field where the mad yogis were. It was during that period, you remember? But I think it's because of Ratnajyoti, I jumped over and did that, and I got in a little bit deeper than I thought. With the series of questions and things you had to do in order to win the competition. Do you remember?
Yeah. I'm not going to say a lot to tell the truth.
No, it's a bit rude. I remember. Yeah, it's a bit rude. But anyway, Pamela Vajra was laughing his head off. I remember that.
Yeah.
I did get free saunas, and I still technically can, but I'm not sure if they're around at our festival. I think that what were they called? That sauna place. And who was the guy who did that?
So I think we're getting off topic a bit.
Cabaret. Cabaret. What was that? Amazing.
Yeah.
Adam.
Yes, Adam.
Oh my God! Anyway, other people listening and wouldn't know what.
Yeah, it all gets a bit relevant.
In Butterfield, we had various things, and Adam had this fantastic sauna and cabaret events, which attracted many people. And then he had this. One day he invented this idea of having a Buddhist quiz, and I got pulled in, and Sajjit was on the panel, and Rupert Dash, and they said, "No, it's a quiz." And I said, "Well, okay, I'll do it."
I know what you're talking about now. Yeah.
It ended up as an outrageous quiz,
Yes.
Really extraordinary. Anyway, time for that maybe. We're getting away from
another time.
I just want to tell you something about Adam. I want to tell you something about Adam.
Yeah. Let's keep on topic, guys. Guys, keep on topic. Okay.
Keep on the topic.
There's something called Rebel Wisdom. Now listen, just take this in.
Yeah.
Rebel Wisdom. Yeah. It's they're doing a festival this weekend online, but Adam is one of the figures in there, I think. I've spotted him.
Oh.
Right, good.
Rebel Wisdom.
Yeah.
I'll talk to you later about that.
Yeah, all right.
Okay.
Mal Ratnajyoti was, I think, because of his interest in what Mindell was doing, he was really believed he was working with the Wara energy, with his epileptic fit. And of course, he took his cue not wanting to take the drugs, the very strong drugs that the medical profession wanted to have, because he saw what happened to Alia, who was on this medication, became almost a bit, according to Ratnajyoti, not me, so it was a bit like a vegetable, which, and of course, Ratnajyoti, when he went on these drugs and when he came out of hospital, he was also like that, almost like a vegetable state.
Yeah.
So it's very sad to see.
Yeah.
But and he fought that all his life, and Mindell was his book, his Bible. To do that, his doctor that was working with these energies. Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I was friends with Alia, and he was an amazing guy, such a nice bloke, and you know, but
remember
he'd have these fits and stuff, and in the end, he ended up like getting some sort of thing where he couldn't get warm, you know, like he just got colder and colder, and they couldn't do anything for him, and he was just, I'm freezing and all this, you know, and he died in the end, you know. But but I think these people are like just really like kind of heroes, really, that have had to deal with it, having epilepsy, but making something out of it, you know, like being somebody, you know. Both of them are really somebody's. Yeah.
But the other thing I liked about Ma Ratnajyoti is, as I think you mentioned, Bandhu, he and maybe it was you, Ma Bodhi. You mentioned about dream workshops. Just before I went, about 3 or 4 months before I went to Nepal with him, he did this one and only retreat where it was given over to him, a dream workshop stroke retreat, and we were at this beautiful site. It belonged to what was it, up in Upper Chagford. It was actually up in what was it, Batworthy Mill. Amazing. Batworthy Mill, and that was the same place where I had these big Naga experience, you know. But anyway, Batworthy Mill, Ratnajyoti was doing this dream retreat, and it was an extraordinary retreat. Because, for instance, as an example, we had a kind of program which more or less, in the beginning, fitted into a Buddha field type retreat. But what's really weird is in the morning, instead of waking up and meditating, he said, well, what you do is you wake up and have a little book and a pencil or something to write on. Write on your dreams, and then try and go back to sleep again, and try and remember that, and then after breakfast we would then talk about our dreams individually in the group. You know, it was a small retreat. I think it's about 10, 15 people, and he was presiding over it. And I remember because it's very funny. It was. I told him about my dream being on an allotment in my dream, and there was another guy on this retreat, or maybe it's a woman, I can't remember, said that she had a dream, or he had a dream of an allotment, and that in her dream, I came and stole her vegetables, or his vegetables. So Ratnajyoti, instead of leaving it there, he said, this is very interesting. So he made it into a court case. He said, so, my love, I was in the dock, you know, so what can you say about these vegetables? And he said, well, I can't remember. I don't remember. He said, but that's no excuse. What? And I can't remember how it all panned out, but eventually we came to an amicable agreement that I just borrowed the vegetables in the dream from this guy. And then it got more and more bizarre. I thought that was bizarre enough. And then Ratnajyoti was telling us to act out some of the dreams in a kind of play and things like that. And people actually, towards the end of the sheet, started doing it. We would start doing spontaneous things. And one of the things we used to do I used to do as a kid, piggyback on somebody, with a cricket bat or a pole, and charge them, and there'll be somebody on the other side, like a knight, coming towards you and fighting, and the first one to pull each other off, getting back into childhood dramas. And we all got into this, and it had a really interesting effect. It did have an effect on the dreams. You did become more childlike and more spontaneous. And I think he was working with Mandel's material. But I remember this retreat. It does stick out as a very unusual, and it was a one-off. He never did another one.
And we used to play in the river, didn't we? We'd have the raft. And we'd going.
Do you want to say about that? The beach.
The beach.
Yeah. I'm just aware that we've done 2 hours now, and it's like Shall we shall we wrap it up there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we ought to wrap up there, don't we, guys?
Yeah.
Well,
because we're finish on something that's about Ratnajyoti and that. Yeah.
We will, but I'll have to say, I'm glad that I talked about that thing. Almost get it off my chest, so it's recorded about the issue with happening in the pool.
Yeah.
In Ratnajyoti and what happened at Doha Airport. I mean, just in case I flake it, it's good to people know what. The interesting story happened there.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, man, Hody. Thanks, Fed Mafani.
Thanks for coming.
I'll get back to you about Adam,
Okay, mate.
Bye.
Bye. See you.
See you guys.
Bye.
No fixed identity.
He holds to nothing for safety.
He holds to nothing for safety.
No world to control.
No world to control.
No world to understand and master.
And master.
He is completely free.
He is completely free.
He has stopped the wheel of anxiety.
He has stopped the wheel of anxiety.
Restlessness and fear.
Restlessness and fear.
His fearlessness.
His fearlessness.
Is insight.
His insight.
Boom! May I not hold back.
May I not hold back.
From loving others.
From loving others.
Through fear.
Through fear.
May I not judge and criticize.
May I not judge and criticize.
Through fear.
Through fear.
May I not come to hate others.
May I not come to hate others.
Through fear.
Through